So I'd like to thank the grace of heaven, virtues of masters, grand predecessor, predecessor, transmitters, and all of you for giving me this opportunity today. For those who missed last week's introduction class, if you didn't get a chance to watch it, please make sure to watch it when you get a chance and turn in the homework for that. I know there was some confusion last week with the time. And if you didn't get to watch it yet, please know that there's 32 core classes. And to pass the class, we need to attend at least 28 of the core classes. Additionally, there's going to be 8 supplemental classes where we go over testing materials or actual testing. And just so you know that homework is not required on the supplemental classes where we go over the testing material, but it is required for the core classes. So please make sure to just turn in your homework for last week's introduction class. You really only need to do a few bullet points about the class, maybe how you felt about it. And a reminder that it's much easier to turn it in each week than it is to do it all at the end of the semester. So today is the first supplemental class where we're going to kind of go over what's going to be tested. So my personal goal is to help all the class members who wish to graduate the class to pass all the tests and requirements. So we're going to tackle each test piece by piece together. And, some people are auditory learners, some are visual learners, and some people are just really good at memorizing things. So we just need to figure out what works for you. And if you're great at memorizing things, then, you can use these text files to study directly. But personally, I'm a visual learner, and what helps me remember things is using images and understanding why. Like, why is something important? And sometimes knowing some interesting facts can help as well. So today I'm just going to share some tidbits as we go through some of the material for testing, and I'll share some images as well. So first, we're going to go over the basic knowledge for staff members from Immortal Lu's scripture. So Immortal Lu, or Lu Dongbing, he is one of the 8 immortals, and he's usually depicted as a scholar, and he's also one of the guardians of law. So all of this information that we're going to be tested on is material that came from one of his scriptures. Now, the first testing item on the Immortal Lu's knowledge is the golden thread. So why is the golden thread important? Well, we need to know where we come from. Just like we have parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, we all have our ancestral lineage. So similarly, we have a Tao lineage. That's the golden thread. So we know we all come from God. We might hear it called Lao Mu or Miming Sang Di in the temple. And we know that there are many patriarchs that spread the Tao across generations. But for testing purposes, we're just going to start reciting from the 17th patriarch here. Okay, Jingong Zusi, or you can call him the Grand Patriarch. So he was Happy Buddha reborn, or Maitreya Buddha. Okay, so this is where we're going to start with the testing for the golden thread, the 17th patriarch. Who came after the 17th patriarch is our 18th patriarch and matriarch. We call them Sizun and Simu. Now, Sizun is Holy Teacher Jigong Buddha reborn, and Simu is Yuehui Bodhisattva reborn. And an interesting fact is Simu is the reason women are able to receive the Tao today, right? So in the past, women were not allowed to receive Tao. So we're very lucky to have her because she paved the way for so many of us. And just so we all know, the patriarch ends at 18. So if anyone tells us that their temple has 19 patriarchs or 20 patriarchs, we know that's not correct, right? So the last patriarch was the 18th patriarch and matriarch, our Sizun and Simu. Now, who came after them on our golden thread or Tao lineage is our grand predecessor. His last name was Hen, and we also call him Lao Qinren for grand predecessor. Okay, so he actually used to be very rich and had a very high position, but he gave up everything, including his family, just so he could spread the Tao to Taiwan. Right, so that's why he's very important. Without him, we would not have the Tao. So after the grand predecessor is our predecessor. His last name is Liu. We also call him Qinren for predecessor. And a story about him was that he was tortured by the Chinese government for spreading the Tao. Back then, it wasn't allowed. And he's known most for his virtue and how much he respected the grand predecessor. Okay. So after our predecessor, in our golden thread, is senior transmitter Cui. And he did a lot of Tao propagation with our predecessor. And a story about him is that when I was little, he used to make homemade steamed buns for all of us. And I remember they were really delicious and looked very professional. And the week before he passed away, my parents and I visited him in the hospital in Taiwan. And no matter how much pain he was in, he just kept saying, "Oh, I'm fine, don't worry, don't worry." And he just kept asking us how we were doing, our temples were doing in America. So he was so kind and so warm. Now, next on our golden thread is our senior transmitter Jin. Hopefully we've all had a chance to meet him in New York. And he is the father of transmitter Ray and lecturers Kai and Tai. So senior transmitter Jin's wife and his mother-in-law became sages in heaven after they passed. Next on our golden thread is all the other transmitters as well. So they're very important because they're the ones who pass the Tao to us during the Tao ceremony. And transmitters, they've all made that vow in heaven, and they're chosen by heaven to be transmitters. And then comes our introducer and guarantor. So our introducer and guarantor, they are like our benefactors, or we could even say our saviors, right? They're the ones who save our spirits. So we can't do a Tao blessing ceremony without an introducer and guarantor. So the introducer has to kneel before God and vow that this person is worthy of receiving the Tao blessing. And the guarantor kneels down and promises that the Tao is real. So we don't actually realize how important the introducer and guarantor role is until we're not able to find a person to do it. So for example, when my daughter was born and we wanted her to receive Tao in Texas, family members are not supposed to be each other's introducer or guarantor. So it took some time finding an introducer and guarantor in Texas for my daughter, right? So we need to be thankful to our own introducer and guarantor. And then last on our golden thread is ourselves, okay? So this is the golden thread, starting from, we know God is where we all come from, but for our testing purposes, we can start with 17th patriarch, then the 18th patriarch and matriarch, grand predecessor, senior transmitter Cui, senior transmitter Jin, all transmitters, introducer and guarantor, and then us. So that is the golden thread, or our own Tao lineage. Does anyone have any questions on the golden thread? Okay, if not, then we can move on to the next test item, which is what are the 3 periods of Tao transmission? And they are the green period, the red period, and the white period. So these 3 periods, they cross thousands of years, and we are currently in the white period. So if we notice, women's wedding dresses are typically white, and that's a representation that we are in the white period. Previously, at least in Asia, brides would wear red for their weddings, and before that, they used to wear green for their weddings. So that's a way to kind of remember the green period, then the red period, and now we are in the white period. These are the 3 periods of Tao transmission. Next on the test is what are the 3 treasures from Tao initiation? Okay, so hopefully we remember the 3 treasures. If we don't remember them, that's okay. Just make sure we go back to our local temple, light the lamps, and ask a senior to go over them with us in detail. But for the test, we just need to know that the first treasure is the heavenly portal, the second treasure is the divine mantra, and the third treasure is the holy hand seal. If we have trouble remembering this, we can also just say heavenly portal, heavenly gate, the heavenly mantra, and the heavenly hand seal or hand sign, right? So we could just change these words to heavenly to make it a little easier to remember. Next is the universal salvation of the three realms. So our goal is to save all spirits, but where are we trying to save these spirits to? All right, so we want to save all spirits so that everyone can go to permanent heaven, or we can say absolute heaven. So the universal salvation of the three realms means uplifting the spirits in temporary heaven. So temporary heaven saints, or we can call them devas, they were, when they were humans, they did really good things in their lives, like sacrificing their own life to save somebody else. And then we also want to save, or number two, we want to save people who are trustworthy and filial, meaning humans who have the affinity in the physical realm. And then the third, we want to uplift the spirits of ancestors in the underworld. So any spirits in these three realms, they did not get a chance to receive the Tao blessing when they were alive, and they're not able to go back to permanent heaven. So we who have received the Tao blessing want to help these spirits in all three realms get back to permanent heaven. So how we do that is by helping as many people receive Tao as possible. Okay, so these are the three realms of universal salvation. The next part of the test, the 4 forms of birth. So there is the womb birth, which is like mammals, so dolphins, humans, anything that was born from the womb. The egg birth, like birds, fish, turtles. The aquatic birth. So those are creatures that were born in wet places. The transformational birth, like insects, such as, cockroaches. So these are the 4 forms of birth: the womb birth, the egg birth, the aquatic birth, and the transformational birth. So when we memorize it, we just need to memorize what's in bold. The next part of the test is the 6 paths of reincarnation. So the path of temporary heaven, or diva. So again, divas or temporary heaven saints, they did really good things when they were alive, but they did not receive the Tao blessing. Okay. The second path is the path of man. So humans, we are currently on this path right now, but we are lucky because we received the Tao blessing. So we have a chance to leave this path of reincarnation. The third path is the path of hell. The fourth path, the path of Asuras. So Asuras are like demons. They were once cultivators, but had really bad tempers, bad habits, etc. Number 5, the path of animals. So animals, they did a lot of bad things in their past lives, like killing. And number 6, the path of hungry ghost. Hungry ghosts, when they were alive, they wasted all their fortune, were very greedy, very wasteful. So they're always hungry when they eat, it turns into fire in their stomachs. Okay, so they're always hungry. So this is a reminder that we should not be wasteful. We don't want to be a hungry ghost. Now, since we all receive the Tao blessing, if we cultivate very well, we have a chance to avoid these 6 paths of reincarnation and instead return to permanent heaven. Okay, so these are the 6 paths of reincarnation. So next on the test is the 3 reflections. So Zhenzi, he was a disciple of Confucius, and he was famous for his filial piety. And he said, "Each day I reflect on myself in 3 ways. In doing things for others, have I been loyal? In my interactions with friends, have I been trustworthy? And 3, have I practiced what I have learned?" So we can use this to self-reflect every day. But for the testing, we're going to have to remember what Zhenzi said, how he reflects, okay? So next, we should remember the vows we took in Dharma class. So anyone that is in the 5-year class curriculum, that means and everyone here was at least in year 2, and it means we graduated the Dharma class and took at least 2 vows. So for testing purposes, we just need to say we should remember the vows we took in Dharma class. But just so we know what those vows were, the first 2 vows that most people take during Dharma class graduation, The first one, to value holy affairs over the mundane matters. And number 2, to contribute and to spread the teachings of Tao. Okay, so we don't need to memorize these right now. We just need to remember for the test that we need to remember the vows we took in Dharma class. And I think this is the last one for the testing of Immortal Rü. We need to remember the names of our introducer and guarantor. So like we said earlier in the golden thread section, our introducer and guarantor are very important, right? Without them, we could not receive the Tao blessing. And when we reach permanent heaven's gates, they might ask us what the 3 treasures are and who is our introducer and guarantor to show, we received the Tao blessing. So again, for testing purposes, we just need to say we should remember the names of our introducer and guarantor. But for our own knowledge, we want to make sure we ask who our introducer and guarantor are if we're not sure, right? Okay, so this is all the information from Immortal Rü's knowledge for staff members, level 2. I know it seems like a lot and there's going to be more that we're going to be tested on, but we'll make sure to go through everything with everyone. And if we take it a little bit at a time, it won't feel as challenging, okay? So class members, you guys have any questions on this section? Transmitters and lecturers, do you guys want to add anything?
Christine, can you go to the top, please?
Yes, here's the top.
And keep going down to the 3 round.
Okay.
Julie, hold on, please. Remember the number 3?
Yes.
Reverse, the uplift the spirits in the underworld. We ancestor just part of it, but not all. So we should say uplift the spirits in the underworld.
Okay.
And include ancestor.
Okay, so for class members, when we get tested on this piece, we'll just say uplift the spirits in the underworld.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, transmitter. Anything else from the class or from transmitters or lecturers? Okay, so our goal is to possibly take one of the first tests in the second week of December, if anybody's ready. So if you need extra time or want to review with me, I'm happy to, set aside time with you and go over this again. But this is Immortal Rü's section. So you also don't have to do it all at once. We can also break it up into smaller sections if we need to. All right. Now, the other thing I wanted to go through today, since we are just doing supplemental review today, is the class opening and closing ritual. So this one's one of the trickier ones because it's all in Chinese. So for English speakers, we would have to memorize the pinyin, the sound, like where we sound it out. And I know that can be really challenging too. So it's better to start now rather than wait till the very end of class, at the end of the year. So we'll do a little bit each time and kind of go through these. So we're going to go over what are we even reciting when we do the class opening and closing ritual. Okay. Let me see. Okay. So the class opening propriety is called the Kai Ben Li. So this is when we have the primary and secondary announcers at the altar during, Dharma class or, our weekly classes, our primary announcer and secondary announcers go to the altar. And when we do a class opening propriety, they have to recite this. Okay, so we're just kind of go through. And just so we know, the primary announcer, the one who stands on the right side, they represent the guardian of law, Guan, General Guan. And the secondary announcer, the person who stands on the left, is representing guardian of law, Lü Zusi, okay? So guardian of law, Lü, or guardian of the law, Guan. So those are who we represent. That's why it's very important when we learn this that we do a good job because we're representing Buddhas. Okay. So number 1, we're just going to kind of go through and I'll try to explain a little bit what it means so it's not so overwhelming. But we start off saying as the primary announcer, 坐仪, which means to take a standing bow while holding the holy hand seal. 跪 means to kneel. 明明上帝时刻手. So 明明上帝, we learned earlier in Golden Thread, that means God, right? So 十 means 10 and koso means bows. So when we say it, it's 坐仪, 跪, 明明上帝时刻手. So we're doing 10 bows to God. Now the secondary announcer, again, the one who stands on the left, they're the ones who do the counting, okay? So each of these represent a number, and ko, remember, means bows. So 一扣, 1 bow, 再扣, 2 bows, 三扣, 3 bows, 四扣, 4 bows, 五扣, 5 bows, 六扣 is 6 bows, 七扣 is 7 bows, 八扣 is 8 bows, 九扣 is 9 bows, and 十扣手 means 10 bows. Okay. So as we start to learn this, we'll actually be learning some Chinese. So we'll be able to learn how to count in Chinese, right? So the very first thing that we did in the bows was 10 bows to God. And then we counted 10 bows. Then the next one is 诸天神圣无叩首. So that means 5 bows to all patriarchs, right? Without them, we would not have the Tao. So then the secondary announcer says 1 bow, 2 bows, 3 bows, 4 bows, 5 bows. 一叩, 再叩, 三叩, 四叩, 五叩首. Okay, so we'll do that one more time. 诸天神圣无叩首. 一叩, 再叩, 三叩, 四叩, 五叩首. And as we kind of go through this, I know everyone's on mute, but you guys feel free to kind of say it out loud to yourself as well. That'll help us remember it and practice that tone. The next one is 弥勒祖师五叩首. That's 5 bows to our Maitreya Buddha, our happy Buddha. Okay, so then we're going to count 5 bows. 一叩, 再叩, 三叩, 四叩, 五叩首. Next is our 南海古佛三叩首. So 南海古佛 is our Guanyin Lady Bodhisattva, and 三叩首 means 3 bows, right? So we're going to count 3 bows. 一叩, 再叩, 三叩首. Then is 活佛师尊三叩首. So 3 bows to our holy teacher Jigong Buddha. 一叩, 再叩, 三叩首. Right, 3 bows. Then we have 月慧菩萨三叩首. So 3 bows to the Bodhisattva of moon and wisdom, 月慧菩萨. And we'll count 3 bows. 一叩, 再叩, 三叩首. And 各位法力祖三叩首. So 3 bows to the guardians of law. 一叩, 再叩, 三叩首. Right, so we just counted 3 bows again. Next is 赵君一叩首. So remember, 一 is 1. So 1 bow to the kitchen Buddha. So 赵君is the kitchen Buddha. 一叩首 means 1 bow. Okay. And then the secondary announcer says 一叩首 to count 1. Then we have 师尊一叩首. So we remember 师尊 is our 18th patriarch. So we say 师尊一叩首 means 1 bow. The secondary announcer says 一叩首. And then 师母一叩首. So 1 bow to our 18th matriarch, 师母. And we count 1 bow, 一叩首. Next is 正殿元帅一叩首. So we do 1 bow to the guarding marshal. And then we count 1 bow, 一叩首. And then next is 正殿将军一叩首. So 1 bow to the guardian general. And we count 1 bow, ikoso. So these two is only in the class opening and closing propriety. And just so we know that, okay? Next is 教化菩萨 ikoso. So 1 bow to the Bodhisattva of transformation. And we count 1 bow, ikoso. And then 各位大仙 ikoso. So it's 1 bow to each immortal and sage. So that encompasses a lot of them. Then we say 1 bow, ikoso. And then Lao Qinren, ikoso, which we know Lao Qinren is our grand predecessor. And we do 1 bow, ikoso. Then Qinren, ikoso. So Qinren is our predecessor. And we count 1 bow, ikoso. And then Dian Cuansi, ikoso. So Dian Cuansi is our transmitters. So if we do 1 bow to the transmitters and we count ikoso. And then Ying Bao Si ikoso. 1 bow to our introducer and guarantor. We count 1 bow, ikoso. And then Qin Xian Da Zong ikoso. So we do 1 bow to all virtuous ones present. So if the males are doing their bows and then we hear Qin Xian Da Zong ikoso, that means they're taking 1 bow to everyone there. So as you know, typically when we're standing on the side, if we hear this, we take a standing bow in respect for them giving a bow to us as well. And then females, when we're doing the bows, the males will take 1 standing bow when they hear Qian Xian Da Zong ikoso. Then it's Ziji ZhiShan ikoso. So Ziji ZhiShan is our own ancestors. So we give our own ancestors 1 bow, then we count ikoso. Then we have Jingong Zusi ukoso. So 5 bows to the Grand Patriarch, Jingong Zusi. So we count 5 bows, 一叩再叩3叩4叩5叩. And then we have Tianran Gufo, ukoso. So 5 bows, ukoso, to our Tianran Gufo. Okay, so translates to ancient Buddha Tianran, but we know that's Jigong Buddha reborn or our 18th patriarch. And we count 5 bows, 一叩再叩3叩4叩5叩. And then we have Zonghua Senmu ukoso. So that's 5 bows to Zonghua Senmu, our 18th matriarch, who is Yuehui Bodhisattva reborn. So then we count 5 bows, 一叩再叩3叩4叩5叩. And then Jin Ban Yuanzang 3叩, 3 bows to the chief examiner of the 3 realms. And we count 3 bows, 一叩再叩3叩. And then we have Hu Fa Da Shen 3叩. That's 3 bows to the immortal of Dharma protection. We count 3 bows, 一叩再叩3叩. And then Bai Sui Sendi 3叩. That's 3 bows to Sagely King of Pure Water, but we know him as our grand predecessor, Lao Qinren, right? So we then count 3 bows, 一叩再叩3叩. Then Da De Zhen Jun 3叩. So 3 bows to the true sage of great virtue, our Qinren, our predecessor. And count 3 bows, 一叩再叩3叩. And then Hui Yan Da Sui 3叩. So 3 bows to the marshal of complete wisdom, 一叩再叩3叩. And then 各位成道前贤ikoso. So 1 bow to each of those white era cultivators who have attained the Tao before us and achieved Tao affairs and are in permanent heaven. So we give 1 bow to all of those white era cultivators, okay, who have attained the Tao. So this is just a representation. And then at the end, we say qi, which means rise or stand. 座椅, it's another standing bow where we're holding the hand seal. 开班礼毕, meaning the class opening proprieties are concluded. 放手鞠躬, 放手 means to drop our hands to our sides, and 鞠躬 means to take another standing bow and step back. Okay, just like this person. So hopefully that kind of helps us understand a little bit what we're doing the bows for. And just so we also know that these proprieties are the same proprieties they do in heaven. Okay, so are there any questions? Transmitters and lecturers, is there anything you would like to add?
No.
Okay. Let me see what else we can go through. So class members, is there anything in particular about either the things we went through that feels more challenging to remember? I know it does feel like there's a lot.
It's good to have pictures to show on each what we bow to. So that's good information.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, if class members, if you guys don't have any other specific questions, do you guys want to continue and see what else is on the test? Or is that a lot of information that's hard to absorb? Okay, if there's no suggestions or comments, then I can keep going just so that we go through as much as we can. And again, as we go through it, if we have trouble remembering things and you need some help, I'm happy to go through. So for the 3 distinctions, this is also going to be tested. Let me pull up. Okay. Yes.
Sure, Christine.
Yes.
Michelle asked if you can go over the bows again.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you for bringing that up. So does the images help you, Ms. Michelle? For those who don't like the images, just know that there's like a just text option here, but personally it's a lot of, pinging words that are, I think personally, are a little harder to remember. So I'll make sure to send these out after the class so that you can, print them out or review them on your own as well. So if there's something specific, Ms. Michelle, that you'd like me to stop or slow down, just let me know. So this is the class opening propriety. This is when we are about to do a class at the temple. So every week in New York, this is how they start before classes begin. Okay, so A is the primary announcer who stands on the right, who represents the Buddha, guardian of law, Gwen. And on the left is the secondary announcer who's counting. They represent guardian of the law, Lu. Okay, so I'm going to just read through it and then do the English without stopping too much. 座椅跪明明上帝十叩首. Right? So 座椅 is the standing bow with the hand seal. 跪 is to kneel. 明明上帝 is God. 十叩首 is 10 bows. Then counting 10 bows. 一叩再叩三叩四叩五叩六叩七叩八叩九叩十叩首。诸天神圣五叩首. So that's 5 bows to 诸天神圣 is all the patriarchs. So 一叩再叩三叩四叩五叩首。弥勒祖师五叩首. 5 bows to the Happy Buddha or Maitreya Buddha. 一叩再叩三叩四叩五叩首. 南海古佛三叩首, 3 bows to the Guanyin Lady Bodhisattva, 南海古佛. So 3 bows, 一叩再叩三叩首. 活佛师尊三叩首. So 3 bows to Holy Teacher Jigong Buddha, 一叩再叩三叩首. 月慧菩萨三叩首, 3 bows to Bodhisattva of Moon and Wisdom, 一叩再叩三叩首. 各位法力祖三叩首, 3 bows to the guardians of law, 一叩再叩三叩首. 昭君一叩首, 1 bow to the kitchen Buddha, 一叩首. 师尊一叩首, 1 bow to the 18th patriarch 师尊. We count 一叩首. 师母一叩首, 1 bow to the 18th patriarch 师母, 一叩首. 真殿元帅一叩首, 1 bow to the guarding marshal, 一叩首. 真殿将军一叩首, 1 bow to the guarding general, 一叩首. 教化菩萨一叩首, so 1 bow to the Bodhisattva of transformation, 一叩首. 各位大仙一叩首, so 1 bow to each of the immortal and sages, 一叩首. 老前人一叩首, 1 bow to grand predecessor, we count 一叩首. 前人一叩首, 1 bow to predecessor, 一叩首. 点传师一叩首, so 1 bow to transmitters, we count 一叩首. 引宝师一叩首, 1 bow to our introducer and guarantor, 一叩首. 全贤大众一叩首, 1 bow to all virtuous ones present. And remember, if we are standing on the side, we take a standing bow when we hear this. 一叩首. 自己祖先一叩首, so 1 bow to our own ancestors. 一叩首. And then we say 金公祖师五叩首, so 5 bows to Grand Patriarch 金公祖师. So we count 5 bows. 一叩再叩三叩四叩五叩首. 天然古佛五叩首. 一叩再叩三叩四叩五叩首. 中华圣母五叩首. 一叩再叩三叩四叩五叩首. 监班院长三叩首. 3 bows to the chief examiner of the 3 realms. 一叩再叩三叩首. 护法大宣三叩首. 3 bows to the immortal of Dharma protection. 一叩再叩三叩首. 白水圣地三叩首. 一叩再叩三叩首. 大德真君三叩首. 一叩再叩三叩首. 慧远大帅三叩首. 3 bows to the marshal of complete wisdom. 一叩再叩三叩首. 各位成道全显一叩首. 1 bow to each of those white air cultivators who have attained the Tao before us and achieved Tao affairs and are in permanent heaven. 一叩首. 起, rise. 坐仪, the standing bow with the hand seal. 开班礼毕, the class opening proprieties are concluded. 放手鞠躬, so put our hands to our side and take a step back with a bow. Any questions or any areas you'd like to go over again? Yeah, I think the memorizing the Chinese part will be probably the more challenging section, but we can make sure that we go over it enough times. And if you go to the temple locally, you can also ask to practice with, the staff members there as well. It's sometimes a little easier to do it with a partner.
Here we don't need to say what we bow to. We just need 明明上帝10颗手 1 bow, 2 bow, 3 bow, 4 bow, 5 bow, 6
So
bow,
just the
7 bow,
section
to
in
10
red.
bow.
and
Yeah, we
blue.
don't need to say bow to whom during the test.
Right. This just helps us so we understand as we memorize. But when you do the testing, you're just going to do the sections in color. Would it help if I read it through without stopping? Again, we can always practice, at the local temple with, the senior staff members or the transmitters. I'm sure they would all be willing to practice with us. Or if you want to spend more time on Zoom with me, I'm happy to also meet with you and go through it slower too. Whatever you feel is going to help your studying. So, is there any other pieces that class members would like to review? Okay, we can keep going because I know there's going to be more on the tests. And let me just share what else is on the test just so we are prepared. So what we just went through was this one, the class opening and closing ritual. And we just went through Immortal Li's knowledge as well. And also so we know, when you do the Immortal Li's memorizing, I know I have a lot of pictures and information here, but what you really need to just memorize is here in the text. So that might be easier once we understand what we're memorizing. Okay, but I'll make sure to send all of these files out so that you can see what works for you to study from. Okay, so we will also need to memorize the morning and evening incense offering. So that's typically for when we go to the temple, if we're one of the temple masters who, go to a public temple and help in the mornings or at night, or if we open our own temple at home, a home temple. So we would need to know that as well. So it's actually very similar to the class opening and closing ritual, with just some minor areas that we would also need to memorize. Okay. We went through Immortal Li's. Something also to note that it's possible transmitters might make some adjustments to these tests, but this is what we have so far. So we went through this as well, and transmitters asked for a brief explanation on the 3 introspections and 4 don'ts, which most people have taken that test for Immortal Li's Knowledge 1 during the first year class. So you already memorized what these were, but just to do a brief explanation to make sure we truly understand it. And the 3 clear distinctions and 4 proper conducts, a brief explanation, just so that we know that these different concepts, we understand what the differences are. And then the 10 great vows, which is what we recite during the Dharma class, or during the Tao receiving ceremony, is what we recite. And then the 15 temple precepts. So we could probably do this one like a separate class so that we can I can have some tricks on how to memorize this one. So we can do that one next time. Okay. So let's go through the 3 clear distinctions. So this, just so that we know that this file is out there, I can share this as well, but this will kind of give us some information on how to explain the differences between these different concepts. So the 3 clear distinctions, the first one is a clear distinction between holy and mundane affairs. Okay, so I'm just going to say what they are, and then we'll kind of go through what the detail is. So that's the first one. Number 2 is clear distinction between temple funds and personal funds. And then clear distinction between male and female, right? So clear distinction, between holy and mundane means that it's not recommended to do business within the temple with other Dao members. Cultivators should not be involved in political affairs except for civic duties. We should not use the temple for our own gain. We do not want to take temple belongings, but we want to make a donation if we take something from the temple. So there's a transmitter who donates money in the donation box every time they take water. Not saying we have to do that, but it's just our heart, right? We cannot accept a person into the Dao family or community with the intention or expectation of getting some sort of benefit or gain. And we don't gossip in the temple, and we should not take credit or possession of other people's merits. Okay, so we don't have to, memorize all this for the test, but just share in our own words what this means. And we don't want to mix holy temple things with our mundane personal affairs, and don't use the temple for personal gain or purposes. Okay. Number 2, for the clear distinction between temple funds and personal funds, meaning the bookkeeping, like finances, everything must be recorded clearly, all transactions of both incoming funds and outgoing expenses. So every entry must be recorded precisely. If, the accountant who takes donations during Dharma class, if they accidentally cannot reconcile the cash to what they wrote down for the donations, they're required to actually make up the money that is missing from their own pocketbook, and it doesn't count as their merits. So that's happened before, where accountants couldn't figure out why the cash didn't match, and they had to be willing to give that money as well. So it's a big responsibility, and it shows that we really don't take other people's monies lightly, right? So we want to record the purpose of the donation exactly as stated. So funds that people give for book printing must go to book printing, fruit purchases must go to fruits, etc. So if people don't say or specify what that money's for, then we can use it for any temple purposes. So persuading someone to make a donation for a different purpose to get more merits or benefits is a big sin. So we don't want to, muddy how donations work, right? We don't want to influence other people like that. People are giving from their own heart. We cannot use Dao members' donations and put it under our own names as if it's our own donation. And we cannot borrow from Dao members' donations or temple funds. So we want to make sure transactions are clear and transparent and do not borrow or misappropriate temple funds. And then the last distinction is clear distinction between male and female. So we want to be aware at all times that male and females, they should be separated in temple. If we're sitting, we always want at least one chair empty between us. So this is a little we don't really have motorcycles in America as frequently as Asia. So females should not casually get onto a motorcycle with a male. Do not casually carry on a conversation with a male in the temple. No frivolously laughing, chatting with the opposite gender in temple. Don't carelessly and casually pat or touch the opposite gender in the temple. And the opposite gender cannot be alone working in one room in the temple. So it's really just saying, we want to be clear and have those boundaries within the temple. It should be a place that's proper, right? If everybody was kind of flirting or touching when people come, they would get the wrong impression. So we want to avoid interactions with the opposite gender that may give the appearance of impropriety and that give rise to misunderstandings and gossip, right? So we don't want to cause any sort of misunderstandings and gossip. And
may I ask comment here, Christine?
Yes, of course.
We don't need to remember word by word on the explanation. We just need to understand and use our own word to explain the each distinctions. So we can use our own to explain just very simply. We don't need to remember word by word. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, transmitter. Okay, so that's basically the end of our class since we're running out of time. And just so we kind of wrap it up, next week there's supposed to be a New York Dharma class. So if that Dharma class is happening, then we won't have class. So our next class would be on November 22nd, but I will send a reminder for sure once we know if the New York Dharma class is happening. And again, no homework is needed for this class today because it's a supplemental class. But please, since there was some confusion on last week's time, if you can watch the recording on your own time and do the homework for that, Transmitter had said that that's acceptable for the first class. In the future, if we miss a class, we will need to do a makeup session online together. But for the first class, the purpose and meaning of the class, feel free to watch that on your own and then send the homework over, right? Any questions from the class members? We will continue to go through the testing material in the next test review supplemental class, okay? But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. If there's anything specific that I can help with your learning, please let me know. I'm open to it.
Yeah, Christine, when we ask the question, we need to unmute them so they can speak. Right now they are unmute, so they cannot speak.
They can unmute if they have something to say.
Thank you.
Class members, or do you guys have anything specific? Ms. Beverly, Ms. Michelle, Susan?
No, I'm good. I think we're good.
Okay, again, if you guys think of something or there's anything specific that you'd like me to go over, please just message me. I'm open to it. All right, transmitters, is there anything in lecturers? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, transmitter wrong is there too. Yeah.
So the second year, we don't have the 15 presets.
I think we do based on the last meeting, right?
We do.
I believe so, since
Oh.
Yin Tuanzi and lecturer Amy said that this was,
Oh.
yeah, so I added back in.
Oh. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do the explanation. Yeah.
Yeah, if any of the class members feel it's way too hard to memorize anything, we can figure out what works for you. If you want to do an explanation, presentation, something like that, we can work something out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Transmitter. Transmitter Lynn, did you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. And lecturer Xu?
Very good. No, but during the test, just one person present the primary and the secondary propriety, right? There's no second person.
Yes, so yes, we have to know both primary and secondary. But we can find some partner to practice with, so we can practice the primary with them and then practice the secondary. Sometimes that's a little easier.
Christine, I just want to add one thing. This is not a test. Don't think this is a trial or test for all of us. This just try to help us to under all this information on the Tao. So one day we went to heaven, absolute heaven. We don't have to. We know what's going on there. So we all know what's all the proprieties, all the informations. So this just help us all of us to understand that. It's not really to try to test us. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Transmitter.